More often than not in comics, improperly done, whether it's in comics or it's in computer games or whatever, what you have is people who take ideas that are already there and reinvent them or pretend to reinvent them. As often as not, they destroy the idea that went before and they say, I can do it better, which is not a good way to do it. The idea person says, I have a new idea. And that's what Jack does. He'd have this way of like doing these rounded muscles. Then he'd do this straight line through the muscle that represented sinew. But sinew is something that's very subtle. It has slight curves and it goes like that. Jack would do this straight line, then he'd do a couple of straight lines. And in your mind you go, I know what that is. That's sinew. This is muscle, this is sinew, but it's just a black line. But Jack had this shorthand method of knocking it out. And if you were to say, well, what is that? You know, he has no right to do that. And you go, well, excuse me, I can go to the museums any day and I can say this, I can see the same kind of interpretation done by people whose paintings are selling for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And you're telling me Jack Kirby can't do it? Wrong. It just overwhelms me to see that gutsy, ballsy thing and in a way say to myself, I can't do it. I can't. I would like to be able to, I mean, I can't do it, but maybe I'd corrupt myself if I did it. Ooh, that's danger. You go, ooh, I like to ink it though. I like to do that slashing line.
I see that story first. I feel that story first. I know those people first. When I put them down, they've already lived. And I put them down as I'd like them to live on those pages. My stories are very sincere. My stories are people's stories. And there's elements in my stories that are very, very real. And it doesn't matter what the subject is. And I've done stories in a wide range of subjects. My inspirations were the fact that I had to make sales. And I had to come up with characters that were no longer stereotypes. In other words, I couldn't depend on gangsters. I had to get something new. And of course, for some reason, I went to the Bible. I came up with Galactus. And there I was in front of this tremendous figure who I knew very well because I've always felt him, and I certainly couldn't treat him in the same way that I would any ordinary mortal. And I remember in my first story, I had to back away from him to resolve that story. And of course, the Silver Surfer is the fallen angel. And when Galactus relegated him to Earth, he stayed on Earth. And that was the beginning of his adventures. And they were figures that had never before been used in comics. They were above mythic figures. And of course, they were the first gods. And I began thinking along those lines. And the new gods evolved from those lines. And I began to ask myself, everybody else had their gods, what are ours? What is the shape of our society in the form of myth and legend? Who are our gods? Who are our evil gods? And who are our good ones? And I tried to resolve them in the new gods. And I came up with some very, very interesting characters and very good sales, which satisfied me immensely. Now, I didn't resolve the questions. I'm a guy who lives with a lot of questions. I say, what's out there? And I try to resolve that. And I never can. I don't think anybody can. Who's got the answers? I sure would like to hear the ultimate one. But I haven't yet. And so I live with a lot of questions. And I find that entertaining. I find that entertaining. And if my life were to end tomorrow, it would be fulfilled in that manner. I would say the questions have been terrific. The comic book medium itself is special. It's something that was That's a result of evolvement. From what I understand, the editorial comic was first. And then they added a few panels to that and you had a comic strip. And they added a few pages to that and you had a comic book. And what we can add to the comic book? We may have to think about that. So I believe that's the interesting part of the entire field, is to say, what is it? Where is it going? How it'll evolve? And we experiment with that every day.